Hello, hello, hello. This is AJT500 slash Talented Track 98 slash Eloise Wonderwhy slash Hilo slash Sarasa's Cake Heart. And this is the post Guild War Ramble for Earth Guild War 2026. If you're new to this series, pretty much I always try and do a pre-Guild War Ramble and a post-Guild War Ramble whenever the Guild Wars come around. Pre-Guild War Ramble goes over what we think might be used in the Guild War, and then post-Guild War Ramble goes over what I actually used. So that's what we'll be going over in this video. We'll go over my results, my setups, and then we'll do a tier list of all the stuff that I used and all the stuff that I saw. So without further ado, let us get into it. So I will say, just off rip actually, before I get too crazy into all the stuff we have to do in this, first of all, this Guild War for me was kind of really ticking scuffed. Really scuffed. First of all, I'm not a ranker. I don't rank. Sometimes I go for a sneaky top 2k at the last second, but I'm not a ranker, so I didn't rank for this Guild War, even though Earth is my main element. But this Guild War really ticking screwed me over just in general. Pretty much the first 2 days, so prelims and interlude, I had Final Fantasy raid because we still have Savage stuff going on. So I was doing Final Fantasy raid. Pretty much I was working because I don't take off for Guild War for the most part. And I was working, and then when I came home, I had to do raid like 2 or 3 hours after I got off work. So I didn't really have a lot of time to like farm like prelims and do like interlude and stuff. So that screwed me. And then on the first day, on first day, yeah, 100 and 150, I got ticking really sick. I got really ticking sick, and I was just ticking out of it those days. That day, and we were gonna lose that round anyway. We just got ticking cooked in the matchup, so I just didn't ticking. I like barely played 100, 150, like at all. 200, I was still sick, but I was feeling a little bit better, so I did manual that day. And then day 3 and 4, I started to feel like good enough to like stream again, so I got back on, and that was pretty okay because 250 was quite easy for me. Quite easy. But yeah, so that's pretty much like a prelude to what happened in this Guild War with like all the scorings and stuff. Also, just so you know, I have Final Fantasy raid again tonight as well, so even though you know, I have stuff going on right now, I'm gonna try and knock this video out before that happens because I don't know when I'll be able to do it otherwise. So this is also very early. Just know that I got a sand from my chest of good fortune, and I'm going to get a sunstone from my from Final Rally later. So anyway, this was my final score. This was our crew record for this time. Also shout out to Cap, Cajun, and Icy, who all got you know, I'm pretty sure Cap already had top 2k, but Cajun and Icy were working for their top 2k here, but they were all pushing for as hard as they could go, so congratulations to all of them. Cajun and Icy both did it on Magna as well. Cajun famously with his Thinking Magna Andromeda. I don't know if Icy had Andromeda. He does as well. So they both had Thinking Andromedas and Thinking Magna. So they're freaks of nature. But yeah. So yeah, congratulations to them. Also again, Cajun, thank you for joining on the pre-Guild War Ramble. Anyway, so this was final ranking for me. I spent a lot of time in Nightmare 90. I wanted to get 4 more Celestials, but I'm not gonna lie, I kind of just took some advice and just rested last night, even though I did wake up this morning to do a little bit of 250 stuff just for fun, and to get Octo to his 999 EMP. But I did get a full page of Celestials, so we'll work with what we got. Records is coming soon, so maybe we'll pick up the last 4 there. So that is pretty much it for like this prelude part. Next, what I'll do is I'll go into the setups that I had for each thing, and then after that we'll do the tier lists. All right, so let us get into these setups. So starting with EX Plus. So EX Plus for me was literally just seeking open fire with the new bullets with Raziel gun. We got to talk about Raziel gun a little bit later. But for now, just EX Plus was literally this. That was it. No characters, nothing. It actually, we'll see the thinking. I'll show all the weapons and summons and stuff, but the summons are pretty good for this too. I'm a big fan of the thinking summons, thinking asset gaming. So let's see. Pretty standard grid here. Also didn't have to swap my thinking keys for anything, just auto keys. Yeah, those nice nice summons, pal. Nice summons. Only thinking need 3 sub summons. Not bad. Not bad. And that's the bullets. So next we'll go into 90. So 90, I actually have like 3 different setups. So I had first the double Kaguya 1 button setup, that, and these first 2 I had planned before Guild War happened. So this one was just Raziel S2 and then attack. This was pretty much going into this Guild War. I know I wanted to farm Celestial, so I was planning stuff around Kaguya. So this was a double Kaguya 1 button, which was just, like I said, Raziel S2 and then attack. I'm gonna skip through some of this on God because I'm not trying to watch all this stuff, but I will show the TK the end. Maybe I shouldn't skip through, bro. It's like harder to thinking skip through, but yeah. So there's that. And then the thinking grid for this, I threw in the V thingy, the V stick. But yeah, that was seeking double Kaguya. Nothing super crazy there. So then the next one I think was single-sided Kaguya, and this one was 0 button. Yes, single-sided Kaguya, 0 button. With this one, Sabrina, Makra, Sarasa. Now while this one's going, I'll explain. So again, those 2 setups there, I had already planned going into Guild War. And for a long time, I had been saying, I don't think taking double Kaguya 0 button is possible for Earth. I don't think double Kaguya 0 button is possible for Earth. And I still don't think it really was. But Cajun and Cap, thank you, put me on to some secret hidden Discord tech that they were using with Vikala taking the artifact that allows you to double strike our characters to double strike behind her. And then you could do that with, if you did single-sided Kaguya and then did Mimic Manatura. So I'm going to stop for a second, actually. If you did Mimic Manatura and you landed Bounty, you could actually get slightly more drop rate than double Kaguya. So you could essentially go single Kaguya and then do Mimic Manatura, land Bounty, and you could actually get more Bounty. So I ran with that, and then it took me about 10 minutes to come up with a setup. It literally took me more time to record for this setup because essentially this setup was built around the fact that Sabrina and Makra already have guaranteed double attack and guaranteed triple attack. But Sarasa, I needed to get guaranteed triple attack on. I could not get guaranteed triple attack on MC, but I could get guaranteed double attack, and I knew that guaranteed double attack would work. But the thing about it is when I recorded it, I knew as soon as I uploaded a video that had MC triple attacking and then I showed that they didn't have guaranteed triple attack, people were going to discredit it and say, oh, it doesn't work because, you know, I'm not triple attacking blase. So I needed to get a video of it double attacking to prove that it actually worked with double attacking. That one is on my Twitter. For this one, I think I just went with a normal triple attack. I don't think I double attacked in this, but that is all to say, it took more time to try and record a run where my MC double attack specifically, and then it still killed, than it took to come up with this setup once I realized the bounty thing could actually get me more drop rate than double Kaguya, so I could essentially run a grid that was good and actually kill the boss while also getting as much drop rate as I could. So that's what went into making this setup here, which was what I ran with for the vast majority of my Nightmare 90. Which was just, it was a 0 button, just attack, but it revolves around the bounty thing. and then getting counters. This could still mess up though if for some godforsaken reason someone didn't get hit here, whether or not there was a 3% dodge from MC, or just someone didn't get hit with to counter off some Rebellial here. But yeah, so that worked, and that worked without buffs as well, which was really good. I mostly went with this. I also had to think about this again because I did mention the Vakala thing, but I used all my artifact rerolls on kicking other stupid crap for Nightmare 200 and 150 later, that I did not have any more left to swap to make Vakalas. So I tried to make Vakalas, but I didn't have enough rerolls, so I couldn't make the quirky artifact on that. So this is what I ended up going with for Nightmare 90. And again, I showed the double attack in here. You did need, I can't remember how much it was on Sarasa. I think you needed like 18% or something like that. You needed a lot of triple attack on her. Also, this is another reason why, again, I run Stamina Sarasa for situations like this where she bursts at high HP, aka full HP. Also, I want to go back for a second. I'm going on to Nightmare 95 in the setup. I hover over it for a second. I never actually used the setup because, again, Nightmare 95, I was very busy during this day, so I never really did 95. But I did see a Raziel gun 95 that allowed you to just do Folia S1 and then attack, and you just use the bullets to attack like that. I'm pretty sure it needed buffs, or you needed the 5+ buff artifact on like every character in order to make that work. But I did have it and I did try it out, so I remember pointing over that, but even though I didn't really use it, but I did want to point it out because, again, we have to talk about kicking Raziel gun later. But this was the 95 that I actually went with, which was just a 2-button Necromancer setup, which most people had already planned going into Guild War. But yeah, so this is what I used for 95 for like 10 or 15 runs, something like that. It was not a lot of runs that I did 95 because, again, I was seeking very busy on prelims and interlude. And honestly, after prelims, ain't nobody doing 95 seeking interlude unless you're like ranking. So yeah. Also, this used the double seeking Kane Tana. That was something. That was something. So yeah, that is 95. Now we go on to 100 and 150. So I'm gonna go over this 100 right here. This is what I initially started with, or sorry, 150 here. This is what I initially started with, which was the Kuwataro setup. This joint originally needed Makara +5 buff at Battlestar artifact, but I was able to pull it off without that. Just using like an NA supplemental artifact on her. But honestly, this setup was not very consistent. I wasn't the biggest fan of the setup. I wasn't the biggest fan of that setup, so I ended up using another one that my friend Dote sent me. That shout out to Dote Anima. He sent me this setup. Adds a few other setups he sent me as well for like 200 and stuff. But I ended up using this Bennu setup, but I also used the Sadala variant of this setup as well. The Sadala variant was supposed to be faster than the Bennu one, but it was supposed to be only usable in attack Ace. But I guess, I don't know if it's because my rings, my artifacts, my perp rings, I don't know. But I was able to use the Sadala one even without attack Ace or any type of buffs or anything like that. So I'm going to show the Sadala one afterwards, and I'll show that setup as well. But Bennu was an option here for the 2-turn 150. So yeah, I'm going to go back in, and then this is the Sadala version, which is pretty much the same thing. Both of them were just seeking 3 button, and then you save MC whatchamacallit for the second turn, and then you just seeking go. But yeah. So that was pretty much this setup. So, but again, 100, 150, this is when I was most sick. So I did not really play this comp as much either. So yeah, it didn't really get that much use out of me, to be honest. Like this was also probably in the ballpark of probably like, I don't know, 10 to 15 runs maybe total. And honestly, probably like 5 to 7 of those were literally just me recording videos for these setups. so yeah, I did not play 100 and 150 like at all, TBH. But it was fun getting, there was quite a bit of Super Sadala use. That is another character that we're gonna have to talk about at the end here, seeking Super Sadala, because she kept showing up for random seeking crap. But yeah, so we'll go into the loadout for this stuff. Excuse me. And then that is 150. Yeah, 150. All right, now 200. Now 200. We went through a lot of variants with this. I started with a Raziel setup again. This was a Kuwataro setup, but then this setup was sent to me by, again, shout out to Dote Anima. But we proceeded to whittle down this setup to as few buttons as possible. I cut a lot of buttons from his original setup with the help of Cap, where we just kept going back and forth, like, oh, you can cut this, or you can swap this, or you can swap the order on this button, do this. But this setup was honestly pretty fun. I honestly did this setup a lot. It was really funny to see Teking Sarasa do like 10 11 mil Teking autos on her assassin stuff. That was pretty crazy. And again, my Sarasa is Teking stamina Sarasa, so heaven forbid if you had a Teking enmity one on the earring, that joint probably would have been Teking crazy. But yeah, so this is seeking, again, this is the 200 setup, and it's just seeking full auto at the end, which is the thing me and Cap were trying to get to, was because in the original setup you kind of fit in Olivia S3 at the very end here, but we wanted to try and get rid of that, so that we could just full auto all the Teking Sarasa attacks and tag teams at the end into just attacking, just to try and make this as full auto as possible. But yeah, so that was pretty much 200. Again, I was starting to feel better on this day. I didn't stream that day, but I did manual to try and help us actually win that round. And the fastest I was getting, was like that 107, 106, somewhere in there. It's the fastest I was able to get. This setup also was the setup that needed the most artifacts, which I guess we can kind of talk about the artifact situation here for 200. This was absolutely abysmal. I made the whole artifact rant because of this, but the artifacts, pretty much everybody needed like Teking one of the bloodshed artifacts. Like everybody needed that crap. And then Sarasa and Sadala also needed the hit to defense artifacts. Just really Teking bad. And then you wanted as much like Cap on like Kame and stuff. And then you also needed a hit to defense on like your fire character, which was either Alanon or whatchamacallit, Sturm. So you just need a lot of artifact optimization. So this plus trying to get the 5+ artifact on like the buff artifact on Makara for 150, going into that, use so much pith. Again, I'm not going to rant too much about artifacts here because I made a whole rant, and that rant was pretty much sparked because of this setup was in the making for this one. But yeah, the artifact situation was seeking terrible. But anyway, we'll go on to 250 now. All right. So now for 250, so I actually have two setups for 250. One that I did not show on stream because I only saw it from Ku, like underscore GBF on Twitter this morning, and I tried it. I did try another one that I mentioned yesterday on stream from Kuwataro, but it didn't really feel like it wasn't fast enough to justify using over the Ogi team for me. But this Ogi team was pretty much exactly what was expected. Going into Guild War, to be honest, there was the only alteration was the skills, what buttons actually needed to be pressed, and then like the summons. I even made a joke about it yesterday on stream that I literally went to my esoteric setup, and then I literally just swapped that party to a different party slot, swapped Silva to the back line, and swapped Shalim to the front, and then that was the setup. For 250. It pretty much went exactly as expected. I know there was a lot of different characters that were used for 250, and we'll go over that once we get to the tier list, but this is pretty much what I ran with for the vast majority of both days. Like I said, the other setup that I only use for maybe like an hour or so. Honestly, I don't even know if I use it for an hour, maybe like 30 minutes because I just wanted to play around with it. And then I actually swapped back to this setup just because I wanted to get my Octo to 999 EMP before the round ended, which I just barely did. I had literally one run in the tank extra before Guild War ended to get him to 999. So yeah, but this was pretty much just Ogi spam. Like I said, this was pretty much expected going into Guild War. Everyone knew that it was going to be Ogi based, especially with all the Ogi tools that we got, and also going off of the first 250 that was like ever released. It was pretty much the exact same thing. I can't remember the exact team. I think it was like it's like Octo like Saturn Alexiel, I think, or like Monica, like something like that for the first team. I don't even remember. Maybe you used Shalim back then too. I can't even really remember. I don't think so. I think it was Saturn. But I don't remember. But I talked about, I mean, people saw this, joined on stream. Like I talked about it yesterday as well, that for Guild Wars going forward, Shalim and Octo are just going to continue to be a menace in 250. I would expect to see them continue to come back until they decide to counter them in some way, shape, or form. Because they pretty much cover all your bases. Shalim covers keeping you alive. She covers debuffs. She covers dispels. She covers damage. Octo covers damage, and he covers whenever you do like a full burst, he'll give you veil, so you just don't get fucking debuffed either. So you just move, and you do a ton of damage on Ogi like per turn. So you just you just kill the boss, bro. So it's very hard, especially after Shalim's rebalance, to nuke this team. And then you just have augments to it like Andromeda Rising Force, Versusia that came out. You have Baija, you have other characters like Lich, stuff like that can help this team just do a lot of damage and survive. And you can just speed blitz and just do Ogi. So it's nothing like super outrageous for this team, but yeah. Yeah. And I could have gotten faster on these setups as well, but I literally did not want to swap my keys because I wanted to do 90 as much as possible, and I needed the auto keys for that instead. So this is the setup that I used. This setup had me smiling like crazy, bro. This joint was really funny, and you got to use Seeking Galleon, who came back. I underestimate the ability to just mash. Galleon started showing up on like the end of day 3. I think I started to see Galleon setups, but this joint is ludicrous. It's honestly ludicrous. So I'm just gonna go through this real quick. You also got to use what I've said before, which is advanced enmity tactics with Fediel coming in here with the dot and the defense down, bro. This joint is crazy. So yeah, I'm gonna just pretty much let this play through. I didn't make this setup again. This was from Ku_GBF on Twitter, that I just kind of followed his stuff. My stuff was also a bit off because the video that he used also used buffs, and he had like a ringed Rhine, so he was able to kill a turn faster than me on this. But it was honestly, I had a lot of fun for like the 30 minutes. I even said on Twitter, if I had access to this setup on day 3, I probably would have pushed to top 2K, just because I had so much fun just mashing with this setup. It was it was a very funny setup. It also has a fucking double Alex in it, just to not just to not take any damage. Every fight is Hexa and Fa 0 speed runs. Ryan was a character that I know me and Cajun, also Makra as well, me and Cajun were both like, we recognize that both the characters are strong, but the question is how much they will actually be used in Guild War. And Ryan definitely started to show up in around 150 to 200 to 250. I saw him in a lot of full autos, and I started to see him in a lot of mashes as well, which is what people thought. But the big thing, honestly, was just, is Ryan and Makra worth taking over doing the Ogi stuff. And I would still say it's honestly very debatable, because even though this setup did turn out faster than my Ogi stuff, it is definitely much more effort than just pressing like 1 or 2 buttons a turn and just seeking Ogiing and just letting that joint go while I just talk to chat. Like, I don't really have to pay attention to any triggers. I don't have to really do anything. Like, it just kind of goes. So it's just, is that like 30 seconds to a minute really worth it over doing the Ogi stuff? Obviously, for some people it is, but you know, that's kind of the give and take when we're discussing characters like Ryan and Makara. Galleon, on the other hand, I honestly just wasn't really expecting. I guess I should have expected that she might just come out in a crazy setup, but honestly, I apologize, Galleon, for I underestimated you. Like I said, I just underestimated the mashing ability. Which, I mean, I don't remember if I mentioned it in the Teking pre-go or Ramble or not, but Galleon is a character that I do feel like Galleon, I've said this about a bunch of characters in the past, like Narmaya and like Ilnot, where these characters are almost like lurking legends. These characters have and I need to bring this up. I have a future video planned, the Earth Glaze video, where I'm going to talk about how there are so many Earth characters that have just 1 or 2 things that are ridiculously good about them that just can come up at random times, and then all of a sudden they just become the best thing ever, and then the whole rest of the year they're just resident sleeper cryostasis characters. And Galleon is one of those characters where Galleon, she's really good when you want to do this low movement burst. You don't really have to do anything on Galleon. You just press S3, you S1 a couple characters, she can S2 to dispel, which is also useful for something like Guild War, and then that's just it. That's pretty much just it. You just let her run. So it's just like there's a lot of characters like that in Earth. But like I said, I think I'm gonna save that for a future video, even though I will touch on it a couple times, especially in this tier list, because this tier list has a lot of Tekken characters that are built around that type of thing. But yeah, this setup was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that setup for the time that I had it. So thanks, Ku, for making that joint. But yeah, this should pretty much be the end of the setups. We're coming to a close on this. So with this being done, that's seeking 18 minutes of setups, bro. With that coming to a close, we will now get into the tier list, and we'll go over how I tiered stuff and blase. So yeah, we'll get into that next. All right, so the tier list. First of all, just looking at this tier list, this is probably the biggest tier list I have ever made for a post Guild War Ramble ever. It probably has the most stuff on it. I could be wrong, but it has a ridiculous amount of stuff on it. And there was some stuff that I probably could have left on or left off, but I want to make a point of it just because there were so many random things. And again, I want to save this for an Earth Glaze video and Earth Talk video in the future, but there are so many Tekken options, and I want to state it here because this is Guild War related. I am so tired of Tekken people saying, oh my god, Earth is my worst Ellie, screw Earth, I don't have anything in Earth. Bro, literally go in your inventory on Earth. Earth setups came free with their Tekken account, bro. If you have 3 characters, you can do this. You can do a setup, bro. There are so many options in Earth compared to any other element. Like I've said before, it is a jack of all trades, Ellie. But I will say it's kind of starting to become a master of all. But anyway, Earth is a Tekken jack of all trades, Ellie, bro. You have so many Tekken options in this element. It's ridiculous. Anyway, with that out of the way, I will state, if you guys have not seen one of these post Guild War Rambles before, the B tier for me does not mean that those characters are bad by any means. The B tier for me is purely for characters that I did not use, but I saw being used, or someone told me that they were being used, and I saw that joint consistently. So that's the reason why there's stuff in B tier that might be something that you may have used or might actually be good, but it's just not necessarily the most optimal stuff. But I did see it being used a lot. That's just what I use B tier for. So anyway, let's start off in S tier or SS tier, and then we'll go down. So first of all, I'm going to start with Teking Sarasa, because Sarasa, I mentioned this before, Sarasa, in my opinion, was my Teking MVP. Sarasa, I probably used more than any other character, and she made waves probably more than any other character. She was extremely useful in Teking Nightmare 90. She was extremely useful in Nightmare 95. She could, honestly, you probably could have used her in Teking 100 and 150. 200, she was absolutely crucial because she does so much Teking damage. And I even saw her in 250. Like I mentioned before, one of the Kuwataro setups that I tested used Sarasa to mash in that as well. Sarasa was just an absolute Teking animal. Sarasa does so much damage. And Sarasa also, with stuff like Double Deal and the fact that she can benefit from characters like Olivia, giving her the follow-up attack. She can benefit from characters like Super Sadala's Teking normal attack damage thing, like where she does like the pops and stuff. Kame's Double Deal on her S3. The fact also that Sarasa and all the other Eternals got access to being able to use their S4 multiple times was also Teking useful as well, because there's a whole lot of shenanigans that you can do there. Sarasa also benefits a lot from artifacts, because she can get essentially Sarasa, there are a lot of setups that she bursts in where you can give her a -70% hit to defense artifact. She can essentially come in, get hit, blown up, and then immediately get to 100% charge bar, Ogi, and then she can go into her burst phase and go crazy with her burst phase and stuff like that. So she benefits a lot from artifacts as well. Also with the cap artifact, the bloodshed artifact also benefits her as well. Sarasa is just seeking, she honestly, like I said, she is my MVP of this guild war, because she is useful whether or not it is manual stuff, whether or not it is full auto low button stuff, whether or not it is full HP stuff, whether or not it is enmity based stuff. She is useful in like everything, bro. Whether or not it is long form content like 250 in your mashing type stuff. She is very, very, very useful. She also benefits a lot from Teking Versusia as well, because Versusia allows you to do a ton of damage in a single turn, and Sarasa can do a ton of damage in a single turn. So Sarasa, just in general, she dominated a lot of this guild war for me and a lot of other people. Octo is in SS purely for 250. I didn't use him anywhere else, but Octo, again, like I mentioned during the 250 section, Octo has the Veil on Ogi, but also Octo does a ton of Teking damage. He does a lot of Ogi damage, and we got the Ogi Impalement. They played a lot into Earth's Ogi in 2025, which just buffs Octo by a lot. Again, Octo got the reused S4, which didn't come up a lot, but again, it's also another thing. He also got all the Eternals got their domain expansions, which also helped him as well. Octo is just a beast for Ogi in general. Shishi Komioroi Teking versus the Teking Raziel text. Again, Octo is just really Teking useful. Kame, mostly 200, but invaluable for 200. Kame, he usually comes up in the 200 setups. That's usually where he comes up, because you need that type of damage. Double Deal, and even the damage cap and the triple attack and stuff like that from his second copy, very good, honestly. And his time skip, again, Kame is another character like Sarasa that I would say more so he benefits the artifacts as opposed to the artifacts benefit him. The fact that Kame has time skip on him is very, very, very strong, because you can not only time skip so that you can use Double Deal faster, but you can also time skip the turn weight on the bloodshed artifacts to make it so that your characters can burst when you want to, essentially on like turn 3, which is really, really, really freaking strong. So Kame, again, invaluable for 200, but very, very strong character nonetheless. Super Sadala. So again, we have to talk about Super Sadala. So when Super Sadala came out, and this is something that I need to say for the Earth video in general, just going over Earth in general. But Super Sadala, when Super Sadala came out, I said a lot that Super Sadala's kit was made bad on purpose, and that Sadala sucks. And I still, to a certain degree, do believe that because I think things like her Ogi, things like her S2, like her passive where she just gets locked out after a certain amount of skills were made bad specifically on purpose. But her S1 being allowing her to double strike while also having guaranteed TAs and amplified normal attack damage is very, very strong. But specifically, the main thing with Sadala, Super Sadala, is her S3. Her S3 allowing you to post-mortem be able to use this effect where most characters cannot do that. Most characters, when they have an effect like that, S3, when they die, that thing does not persist. Hers persists and it also activates. It still activates, it still pings the damage, it still allows you to continuously get amplified damage on the rest of your characters. It is a crazy debuff. I'm not even sure if that joint is necessarily intended or not, but the way that works is crazy. And again, Sadala is another character where for once the low defense is actually useful on this character because Sadala also plays in as well very heavily into artifacts. You can play with her with a bloodshed artifact and with an artifact that lowers her defense to make it so that essentially she can come in, press S3 and then die, and then allow you to run whatever type of comp you want after that, even including something like an Invoker with Kame, because Sadala just died to allow him to come in. So Super Sadala, she is one of those characters again where her kit overall is not very good, but she has things in there that are extremely good, and when you need them, they are extremely potent. And Super Sadala, again, you know, she was also used for things like 100, 150 in place of Bennu, where again, her S3 came in very clutch for that as well. So Super Sadala does not suck. Well, she 50-50 sucks. The rest of her kit is still not good, but when she's needed, she's very, very freaking strong. Galleon, I'm mostly putting here, even though I did use the setup as much, I definitely saw a lot of people, once people started to catch on to Galleon, I saw an increasing amount of setups in 250 using Galleon to just mash through and mow through stuff. Galleon's main thing is essentially she does a lot of damage when she can attack because of her S3. Her S3 gives her massive buffs, but essentially she can only attack one turn and then she can't attack, and it just goes back and forth and back and forth. She also has her S1 that can give massive buffs to your party members as she gets it. She can also Ogi to lower the cooldowns on that S1 so that she can give it to more people. Her S2 as well, taking it allows her to dispel a buff, which can be useful for something like 250, especially when it has the buff that pretty much it stops your damage from doing over a certain amount after a certain amount of hits. So you can get rid of that. She also auto activates that S2, so she can debuff, or she can dispel at the end of turn. Was it like every 4 turns, every 3 turns, something like that? So that can also help with getting rid of buffs. So Galleon, when it comes to mashing for 250, very, very strong. She was useful for last 250 as well with the Tezcat stuff. So I guess, like I said, just don't underestimate Galleon. Never count out Galleon. Shalim. Woo, Shalim. The Shalim rise to fame doesn't even need to be studied, honestly, because I've laid this joint out for you since she came out. I've been trying to sell my dumb boo boo babu for so long to people. Some people picked up on it and some people were rewarded, some people did not, and they were cooked because of it. But Shalim, I've been trying to sell even before her rebalance. Pretty much since she's come out, I've said she was a staple in the safe but extremely strong and ignore everything runs of things like Hex and Fall Zero when they first came out. But after her rebalance, she has become such a dominating factor in Ogi teams. And again, when they push so hard into Ogi in 2025, this character shows up. And again, Ogi 250, she just destroys, as I talked about during the 250 section. She has debuffs, she can tank damage, she dispels like crazy, and she does a ton of damage. She just does a lot, and now she's also a battery for your team as well. It's just absolutely ridiculous how much Shalim can do for an Ogi comp in Earth right now. She makes Earth Ogi ridiculously freaking strong. So Shalim, like I said, you know, I need to talk about it in the Future Earth video. I need to talk about it in the Anti-Tix video. I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but you guys know how strong this character is when it comes to Ogi teams, and you used Ogi teams for peaking 250. So there you go. Olivia for me was only in 200, but she did get used a lot in 200. She, as you saw during the setup, that setup, like I mentioned before, was also originally a Raziel setup, but Olivia just turned out to be faster, allow me to go at faster speeds than Raziel. Olivia, I know me and Cajun were both saying that, don't know if she's really going to get used. And I do think she did get taken out of most people's setups for most things, especially because they nerfed the Twilight Terror aspect of her S1. But even then, I mentioned it yesterday on stream, one turn assassin, that one turn assassin go kind of crazy, especially when all your damage, when you have two tag teams and a Versusia buff and multiple peaking S3, Olivia S3s in one turn, that assassin go kind of crazy. that assassin go kind of crazy. And also when you pair her with someone like Kame, where you can double deal and just auto activate her peaking S2 two times in one turn, don't underestimate the Olivia S3 assassin buff for that one turn. That one turn is a very strong one peaking turn, bro. So yeah, Olivia very strong for 200. Again, I didn't really see her in many other people's setups for other random stuff. I'm sure she may have come up in some people's full autos for stuff, but again, yeah, mostly for 200. Sabrina, I'm sure was used for things like EX Plus as well, but for me, mostly 90, only in 90. But Sabrina, essentially, she has GTA and she nukes and debuffs on auto attack. So very good for Nightmare 90 low button. She's just very good for that type of stuff. Makra, again, we mentioned before in the pre-Guild War Ramble, wasn't really sure how much Makra is going to be used. And I do think, again, when it comes to full auto stuff, I still don't think Makra was very used. I think we were pretty much correct in those assessments that a lot of the full auto stuff turned into either Ryan, Raziel, like Sarasa stuff, or it was like Ogi stuff. Makra was mostly used for like the burst manual comps. But she was very good. She was very good in that stuff. I used her for stuff like Nightmare 90, used her for stuff like 100, 150, used her for the 250 like mashing setup. Makra just very strong in general. Makra also is another character like Octo. It's funny because she's right under Octo. Makra, like Octo, also has Veil on her S2. She also has the dodge all on her S3. She does a lot of damage. She allows your team to do a lot of damage. She also debuffs. Very, very strong character. Another thing about her too is also in conjunction with like the Galleon setups. Galleon can Ogi to reduce the cooldowns on her S1 so she can put it on more people. Makra can Ogi so that she can dodge damage and just not take damage. And Ryan can Ogi so that he can get double strike when he goes crazy. So all of those characters also benefit a lot from Ogiing as well. So they kind of work together for a mash comp. So again, Makra, very good character, but mostly used for the manual and like the burst type setups. Raziel, good. I hesitated. I was very close, and especially as you guys know, I don't like Raziel, so I was very close to putting her in S+, but I did say, even though I did end up benching her for my 200, I did keep her in SS just because I know a lot of people did stick with that 200, and a lot of people used Raziel for various full autos as well, because a lot of people actually used that new water boss full auto. A lot of people had the same idea of doing like the Sarasa, Rhine, Raziel, Versusia main setup for that, because it comes with like a lot of dispels for that boss. Well, that's very useful for a Guild War boss as well. So I saw that type of full auto a lot as well. So even though Raziel was not always used in burst comps, Raziel was also used in full auto stuff as well. Raziel is also a primal as well, so she was also used in a various amount of Medusa comps. So Raziel, I think she can stay in her SS, even though I didn't really use her that much. I definitely see the merit of Raziel staying in SS, and I'm sure she was also used in probably like some grouping type stuff as well. Reinhardt Czar was pretty much in the exact same in the exact same boat as Makra, a little bit less so just because Makra was also used for the lower floors like Nightmare 90 and stuff like that. But Reinhard Czar, his main thing was how much is he going to be used in the later floors, like 250 for mashing and stuff like that, 200 and mashing and stuff like that. Again, I already mentioned the full autos, but he did show up in, again, the full autos and the mashing comps. So Ryan, I think his damage, the amount that he can dispel, the amount of stuff that he can tank and just not die because he has an all ally sub, and he gets 3 stacks of Teaking Undying that also can come back, whether or not with it's from the Reki 3 or from like a Quillen. Very Teaking strong character. I think him being an SS, especially with how much people used him in the end, is warranted. Baija, I mentioned multiple times on stream that I think that Octo and Shalim, and to a lesser extent Andromeda, were the most important parts of the Ogi comps, but Baija also just does a lot of deacon damage. I know a lot of people were undervaluing Baija when she first came out. They were like, oh, she doesn't have dispels, she doesn't do this, she doesn't do that. But Baija's main thing is that she does damage, and her S1 not only also does a lot of damage, but it allows her to let your team do a lot of damage. And not only that, but also by proxy, and this is also funny because she's right next to Versusia. She allows you to proc Versusia, which is very, very strong because she's a character that can double Ogi. So she allows you to do like the 8-chain Ogi. So even if you're not main summoning Versusia, you can activate Versusia, which also allows you to do more damage and get more dispels. So Baija, even though she is probably the least important character out of the Octo, Shalim, Andromeda comp, she also brings a lot to that comp as well, in the form of not really having to do anything either. She can also help you battery with like her S3 and her S1 going off as well, but she doesn't really need to press a lot of buttons. She just kind of stands there in the back and just does damage and allows your team to do damage. Which is very strong because, again, her S1's debuff gives like the amp and the defense down and stuff like that. So Baija also very, very, very strong. I think she is warranted enough to be an SS as well. Okay, now moving on to summons. Now Versusia, I just spoke on Versusia on the Ogi side. Let's talk a little bit on the auto side. I guess I did mention before with the Rhine, Raziel, Sarasa's full auto, she played into that as well so that you could proc it, get more dispels, get more damage, stuff like that. The main thing that I was using Versusia for in terms of an auto-based comp though was in the 200 setup. She does a lot of damage, especially in conjunction with Mammoth, which again, I don't know how I'm keeping doing this, bro, but Mammoth is right below her. Pairing those two together, very, very kicking strong. You do a ton of damage. Again, you do a ton of damage in one turn. It is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Her debuff is incredibly ticking strong. She's very, very, very ticking good. Very good ticking summon. Will probably be used for Guild Wars going forward as well. Almost certainly. Yeah, just very strong. We know what Versusia does, but she's just very ticking strong. Bubs mostly for 250. Bubs, even though Bubs has started to get crept a bit by, again, I still don't know how I'm doing this, right next to Versusia, starting to be being crept by Versusia. They kind of hold the same type of thing. A lot of people are saying like how Versusia is like Bubs 2.0. Bubs still does have the Teaking triple spell, which is very, very strong for the 50% trigger, getting rid of as many buffs as possible so that you can start doing more damage fast. Also just buff your MC because you're going to be oging a lot, so you're just going to get the MC buffs as well. Buffs are strong. Summer Belial was really Teaking good for just the counters. just the counters. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw some Teaking like advanced enmity tactics type thing for this as well. I can't remember how many setups I actually had Summer Belial in that had it for like the defense down as well. I can't remember, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw setups like that as well. just very good. Also pairs as well if you're using Yatma main. It can be a summon that you can use so that you can call specifically the summons that you want. Next, going into Yatama. Yatama, again, mostly for 200. Yatama main was the thing, but also there was Yatama just being in the party so that you could call 2 summons, aka like Versusia and Mammoth. I think that was pretty much the 2 summons you were calling. It was just whether or not you just call Yatama to call those 2, or if you use Yatama so that you have the ability to call those 2. But Yatama, again, Yatama, I feel like just in general is just a Guild War summon. She comes up a lot in Guild War. That is where her gimmick of being able to call 2 summons is the most prevalent. Kagi is here. Kagi is here because speaking, I like Celestials. You like Celestials. We like drop rate. We like drop rate. All my homies like drop rate. Alexial Summon. Alexial Summon was very good for this boss because this boss during 50%, she had a trigger where if you just didn't take damage, well, if you took damage, you would lose your charge bar. If you didn't take damage, you didn't lose your charge bar. So you use Alex so you don't take damage, so you don't lose your charge bar. So you can keep your charge bar team going how it's supposed to without having to take a turn of essential downtime. Also, as you saw in like the Ryan Mash setup, you actually use 2 Alexials just so you can survive and just mash through stuff. And also, Alexial is very strong as well because in the same vein as Bub Summon, she allows your MC to also dispel. And whether she also works too, if you're oging, she will dispel multiple times if you're oging, which can be incredibly useful for getting rid of buffs. But she'll also do that as well if you're using something like Hunting and you're doing double strike. You can dispel 2 times in a turn. And that also in conjunction with stuff like Versusia just allows you to throw out a ton of dispels. So Alexial Summon was also very useful. I'm actually putting Uriel Summon in here. Usually I don't do this because I don't usually put the standard type summons in here, you know, like the Primarchs, the Primal, stuff like that. But Uriel Summon unironically was useful for this because of the prevalence of Ogi teams in 250, getting the charge bar and the charge bar gain. Also, the fact that Uriel Summon could also be used so that you could get a head start on Ryan's S3 for the Reckies was also very, very good. Uriel Summon just in general was very useful this Guild War. The actual call on it was useful, so that's the reason why I put it in SS. Mammoth, mostly 250. I'm sure there was tons of grouping stuff that used Mammoth as well, but sorry, not 250, 200. But I'm sure there was probably grouping stuff that used Mammoth as well. But 200, again, just the amount of damage that you can do in one turn, plus also like the TA, very strong summon with all the echoes. Now, summons out of the way. I'm not gonna go too crazy. We've already had the pre-Guild War Ramble for this stuff. Again, I will talk about more stuff like this in like the Earth Glazing video, stuff like that. I'm not gonna go too crazy with the weapons, but we'll get into weapons. So, Helden Hymna, you saw 3 to 4 of these. We all know how strong this weapon is. Advanced enemy tactics is a thing. 100% crit is a thing. Echo is a thing. You saw this even in some, I did see it in some people's Ogi setups. Don't really know if it was optimal or not, but I saw it in some people's Ogi setups as well. Just a very useful weapon in general. Just a ton of damage. We know what Helden Hymna does. I've made so many videos, talked so much about Helden Hymna. You know, Helden Hymna is good. Baija Staff mostly for the Ogi comps. Pretty much this was our premier weapon going in. You know, Baija was our premier character. Baija weapon was our premier weapon. I don't even know what I just said. Baija was our premier character. Baija weapon was the premier weapon. Going into Tekken Guild War, they were the last things that they gave us. Very strong for Ogi comp. Very strong for Ogi comp. We finally got the impalement, I guess debuff, however you want to say it. The impalement skill, and then it paired on with this so that our Ogis just do a ridiculous amount of damage. We can do a ridiculous amount of damage per turn with Ogi. And this also helps with the essential overflow damage, with the echo as well. Just very good for the Ogi comps, and Ogi comps were very prolific in this Guild War because of, you know, full autos and even like partial manual stuff as well. Very good. PNS is PNS. PNS is very good for, you know, auto base stuff in general. Very mainstream. Pretty much the same thing with the Medusa Katana. Medusa Katana is very, very good for all the auto stuff, especially with the type of autos we be doing with, 10, 11 mil hits off of Sarasa, especially as well. This also plays a lot into all the amp that we have as well. We have the amp and the cap. Again, I've talked a lot about artifacts in the character section, but we have a ton of cap. We have a ton of amp from stuff like Super Sadala's amp. We have Benu's amp. We have Versusia's amp. We have this amp as well. Character buffs in general that just help with the amp. We have assassin stuff like Narmaya. We have assassin stuff like Olivia. We have assassin stuff like Deacon Galleon. There are a lot of assassin stuff that can take advantage of this amp. It also has HP on it, which has been a meme for a long time, and it still kind of is a meme. But it legitimately does play into the advanced enemy tactics, keeping us alive. It can be very, very, very strong weapon. So Medusa Katana, very good. You also saw up to 3 of these in certain scenarios as well, especially if you were using Versusia main summon or Yatima main summon, anything that was not, Titan or something like that. You did actually use 3 Medusa Katanas. That is a thing that was being used during this Guild War. The Galleon staffs, I would say mostly were for the Ogi comps. I'd say a pretty standard Ogi grid is something like 2 World Enders, 2 Baija staffs, 3 Galleon sticks, something like that. So mostly for the Ogi comps, but I guess technically if you did not have the more up-to-date stuff like health and hymnas and stuff like that, you could also use Galleon staffs for various other setups as well. World Ender I feel like is almost at the same places like PNS and like Medusa Katana, where it's just like World Ender, you do skill damage, you bring it, you need a little bit of TA, you bring it. Very, very strong weapon in general with World Ender. Kane Tana, I know we were kind of on the fence. I'm happy that I vouched a little bit for Kane Tana in the pre-Guild Ramble. Kane Tana was indeed taking useful. And there was even up to 2 just because we needed so much seeking raw damage just to hit into what we're trying to do. So it was very strong for some setups. And it does give TA as well, which is also another strong suit of it as well on its awakening. Celestials in general, I feel like there was a lot of them that were used this Guild War. I saw a lot of the staff. I saw a lot of the sword. The attack awakening was quite useful. I saw a lot of the axe. I saw the fist. I saw the staff. I saw the staff with Ogi awakening as well. What other one? I feel like there's one other one that I'm missing. That I saw as well. But I cannot for the life. I probably saw a harp at some point too. Celestials in general work pretty well with Earth. Just in general. Pretty freaking good. So yeah, Celestial showed up a lot. Again, this also plays into keeping us alive, damage caps, extra stats, stuff like that. Celestial, good. Grunting, grunting, seeking grunting, bro. What do you want? Especially if you use Glorybringer stuff for like 100, 150, it still does have that kicking, added edge of being able to use Glorybringer S1. Also, just double strike on your MC just in general for these low button setups can also add a lot of damage onto that as well. Just very good. Hunting very good. We know what hunting does. Andromeda has stepped up. Andromeda is in the spotlight. Andromeda is going crazy. Ogi is in, Teking Auto is out, Andromeda is seeking crazy. Andromeda also keeps you alive. Andromeda has a ton of Teking buffs on it, Teking perma dispel cancel. Ogi's out, Ogi's out the wazoo too, but dispels out the wazoo because you have, Andromeda dispelling, you have Rising Force dispelling with pinch, you have taking Versusia dispelling when you're attacking. You have so many dispels going out. Andromeda, most people thought that Andromeda was going to be very useful, especially if you think back to the original 250. Again, Andromeda was very useful in that as well, so it's just a repeat of that. Andromeda stonks or through the freaking stratosphere, through the freaking, I don't know, through the cosmos. We're hitting Neptune with this joint. We're hitting freaking Pluto. We're bringing Pluto back on the map just because we're hitting it with the Andromeda stonks, bro. It's insane. Andromeda's going crazy right now. So yeah, Andromeda, very freaking good. Sky Piercer, I had to throw in here. Not sure how useful Sky Piercer was overall for people, but Sky Piercer was used in the freaking 200 setups. I tried to argue it before. I said freaking, Sky Piercer can show up for Guild War. It can show up. People were like, oh, but my Sumabido fist, I have Uriel fist. I can just use Uriel fist instead. No. You still want to use that kicking Sky Piercer, bro. People are just mad because they bought Fire Sky Piercer and that joint's not kicking useful. You bought the wrong one. you bought the wrong one. So that's all I'll say about kicking Sky Piercer. Raziel gun. I'll take my roses, boys. I'll take my roses. I made a meme on this using freaking Louis seeking music video on Twitter. Bro, thinking sorry to be late, but do you remember me? I made a video 2 years ago. 2 years ago talking about thinking Raziel gun versus Hraesvelgr, and I talked about how back then when Raziel came out that I was farming the bullets back then for Raziel gun because it had a lot of similarities to Hraesvelgr. And the thing about it is that even though it doesn't have all the stats of Hraesvelgr, you can make up those stats with back then. That video was even before Medusa Katana, but I said Medusa Katana was probably going to be normal attack amp, which it was, and it was probably going to be able, with Medusa Katana plus PNS, you were probably going to be able to mimic Hraesvelgr in a way. It's still not exactly Hraesvelgr. Obviously, Hraesvelgr does all that stuff, alone. And Hraesvelgr also, someone, I think it was Phoebe actually, that had told me that they don't specifically work the same with the flurry and stuff. Like essentially, Hraesvelgr always has the same amount of flurry, whereas Raziel's flurry kind of goes up as like per attack. So like on the first attack it does a certain amount of flurry, on the second attack it does a certain amount of flurry, on the third attack and then forward it does a certain amount of flurry. So it's still weaker than Hraesvelgr, but it's very similar, and that showed up in things like EX Plus and Nightmare 95, which is again why I mentioned that Nightmare 95, because that is a real thing. That is a real thing. So again, Raziel gun, it took a while for it to show up, but it was indeed very useful. Again, with the new bullets and with open fire, and instead of Orologia, you can just open fire, and then you can really make use of the bullets and Raziel gun's effects. So Raziel gun, again, very, very strong. This Lobelia axe is purely here for Cajun because this has to do with Celestials. Pretty much I mentioned in the pre-Guild Ramble when we talked about evoker weapons, I talked about how when you're fighting on Ellie and you don't need a Draconic, if you have a maxed out Celestial, there's not really a lot of other things to put in a extra slot for Earth outside of the evoker weapons. And assuming you don't need the survivability of the Kame weapon, you usually will just end up throwing in Lobelia's weapon for, the extra damage, plus it has the effect of the extra damage just going off every 3 turns. And it did come up in the Rhyme mashing comp for 250, so I just have to poke fun at Cajun. But that is just again another thing to keep in mind going forward. Sieg Dagger, we know how Sieg Dagger operates. I mostly wanted to put Sieg Dagger here because my special Sieg Dagger did come in handy for not only, I think, for the 150, where I mentioned before that people said that they needed attack ace for the Super Sadala. I think it's because the setup that people were using for Super Sadala in that was using an attack dagger instead of a special one. But I keep talking about how the special dagger is really freaking useful for the cap, and nobody seems to believe me. But I think I used a special Sieg Dagger and I was able to do it without attack ace. So just saying. But I also used my special Sieg Dagger for my Nightmare 90 setup as well, the one that I made. So that's the reason why I wanted to put Sieg Dagger up here, but I'm sure other people use it as well for its normal just echo effects as well. Lastly, for the weapons, Shalim weapon. Shalim weapon is honestly not that crazy. It just helps with the whole Ogi sphere. So anything with the Andromeda with Baija comp, it's usually that last pretty much in that comp of the double Whirlwinder, double Baija, three galleons. That last weapon, assuming you don't need anything else there, is usually like the Shalim weapon, just to add on extra Ogi damage on top of that and get the special CA cap. So I just wanted to mention it here because I did use it for pretty much the majority of 250. But yeah, so that's it for the SS tier. That was a lot of characters and weapons and summons to go through. Okay, so now I will go through a pseudo speed blitz of the rest of the stuff, because the rest of the stuff I didn't really use nearly as much. But Folia, Dante, and Adam in S plus. So again, Folia, Dante, they have pretty much been relegated to, I would say, like 90, 95 at this point, because Folia's thing does not work any higher anymore, like her S1. So they've pretty much been 95. And you don't really need them for 90 either. So that's pretty much their spot. But the reason why Adam is also here is because I did see a lot of people that use Adam over Dante in those comps. So pretty much, since he's so interchangeable, I just put him here as well, because he's also zero button character that just buffs your team essentially. I also have the Exo dagger here. Honestly, it probably could have been an SS as well, but it's just I never really used it personally. But I will not underestimate its value, especially if you do not have Andromeda. It was probably the best Ogi main hand other than that, and it's free to play. So it's very, very, very strong. Again, it's just not an SS, just because I didn't really use it, and it's not technically the best thing that you could use, because Andromeda is. Going down to S, Lobelia and Silva, pretty much both just backline Bettys. Don't really think anyone did any Silva swapping, just because you didn't really need to for the Ogi stuff. You could just mash through it anyway with Shalim. But the thing about it though is both of them were still useful for those Ogi teams and just teams in general from the backline, especially Lobelia. Lobelia very strong because of his backline buffs, especially when you press buttons. So yeah, pretty much that for those two characters. Antheria and Bennu. Antheria and Bennu are both here because they were both in 150. I don't know if they were used any other place for anyone else, maybe in some grouping setups or something like that. I dropped Antheria a lot because, like I said, that setup for me was just very inconsistent. So she was kind of like, eh. And Bennu was down here because not only did I barely use my 150 setup in general, I barely used him for it because I spent more time with the Antheria comp and the Sadala comp. But me, he was kind of like whatever. I think Bennu overall for me, I don't know if it was the same for other people, but Bennu, I think, well, it was kind of within expectations. I didn't expect Bennu to really get used that much. I think most people expected him at most he would come out and do something in 200 as well. I think most people expected him to be used in the 100, 150 range. The question was just if he would go into 200 as well. But I didn't think he would really go anywhere below that and nowhere above that. So yeah, pretty much within expectations, but he was used. Zeta, Alanon, and Io. So these are pretty much SAC characters. Alanon is actually the SAC character that was used for my 200 setup, but Zeta was used for sacking stuff. If you were using stuff like for like the Raziel comps, for like full auto stuff like that to get her stacks in the right place, you could use a character like Zeta or like Fra or like Zoe or something like that to get your buttons in the right spot. Io for me, I don't know if anyone actually used Io, but I just didn't see Fediel on there. Fediel was actually the person that needs to be here. Fediel, she's just getting ready to come to Earth. I'm telling you, bro, we're gonna get taking formal Earth Fediel, Earth and OP. She's gonna be taking good, bro. Just wait, bro. Just wait. We're going to get a Fediel on Earth, and she's gonna be good. Trust me, bro. Trust me. But Fediel was used for the 250 Rhine mash because of the advanced enmity tactics, you know, the defense down and the dot damage. You know, just good for a sacking character. Orologia, I don't know if I used Orologia like at all, but I know I definitely saw Orologia being used by various people for various things. So Orologia is here. Quillen, didn't actually really use Quillen either. The main place that I saw Quillen actually was in the Kuwataro 250 setup with Sarasa, to get Sarasa's stuff to come back. So that was the main thing, and I guess Ryan's stuff to come back. That was the main thing that I saw Quillen being used for, but I don't know if it was used for anything else. The Tigris, this is also just Tigris and Amino were kind of just, this is the crit corner thing. I saw a lot of crit replacements for missing Helden Hymnas and stuff like that for various crit grids. I saw like Anthuria book, I saw Rhine Fist, I saw a whole bunch of different stuff. I even saw like stuff like Mjolnir being used in the same vein as Amino, where you needed TA and you needed crit. So just the crit corner for these two, that's pretty much the reason why they're here. I saw a lot of replacements for crit for that stuff. Now lastly, super speed blitz of the B section. Again, going over to reiterate, for the B section of my tier list, none of this stuff is necessarily bad. It's more so that the B stuff tier list is stuff that I saw, but was not actually, I didn't actually use like at all. So Eugen I saw for Ogi stuff. Alexiel I saw for Ogi stuff in 250. Kane I saw actually for some full auto stuff. For some full auto stuff, auto and I don't know if it was Ogi based or not. I guess it was Ogi based. So I saw auto and Ogi based Kane stuff. I even saw some burst comps in 250 that were also using Kane as well. So Kane actually did see some use. I didn't really go over those setups that much, but yeah, I did see him use. Narmaya, I saw her use, but I did not use this character at all. I did not see a need for Narmaya in any of my setups. So I don't know. Maybe it was like a Tekken grouping thing. I don't know. But I did see Narmaya, but I didn't use her. Leona, I actually did see. I did see a Leona comp. I think it was for 200. I saw a Leona comp for something. I don't know what it was, but I did see a Leona comp. Diantha, I saw her in the backline just for her backline buff on MC. Monica, I saw for Ogi comps. Satyr, I saw for Ogi comps. Ilna, I saw in conjunction with Fakala actually. I saw for getting Ogi bars so that you could do like the Nightmare 90 stuff, stuff like that. I also saw Vakala in just random Tekken comps. I just saw Vakala showing up in random comps. So I saw her showing up and stuff. Ilnat, again, let's just go back to Ilnat for a second. I did not see Ilnat being used for like really anything for her actual skills. It was mostly for like that Baizha-esque passive. I guess the main thing that Ilnat helps you with is that essentially Ilnat doesn't give you double Ogi, so it just lets you take less lockout than a Baizha would be if you were putting Baizha there. But yeah, I did see Ilnat used mostly just for the charge bar on battle start. Yaya I saw on for Ogi comps. Uriel I did see for a multitude of different burst comps. In like 200. I don't know if I saw him in 150, but I did see him in 200. I saw him in a couple like full auto stuff too. I don't know what that was, but did see Uriel show up. Medusa, me and Kuda had to Tekken duke it out. We were going fisticuffs yesterday over the Tekken Primal Pals Tekken comps, bro. I already know people are going to be like, oh, look, Medusa gets used in Tekken, 250 full auto. She's used in Guild War. She's good. No, bro, Medusa she's still whatever. She's just used in Guild War, bro. But yeah, Medusa was used in Guild War. Luo, Ogi comps, saw him in some Ogi comps, even though he doesn't have a faded chain. People were holding on to this dude's leg. Still using Tekken Luo. Siegfried I saw for a various amount of full autos towards the end, like the last 2 days. Lich, Ogi comps. Berceau, I saw her in random comps. I'm not really sure how needed she was in those comps, but I did see one person's piece of art that said she was their MVP. So I guess she was really Tekken good for something. I don't know. Amelia I saw for like her counter thing. Jamil I saw for horde stuff, maybe EX plus as well. Jessica I think I saw kind of in the same vein as like Adam and Adam and Dante. I saw her in some of like the 95 comps, I think. Pengi, stuff like EX Plus, Kukuro, stuff like EX Plus, Melu, stuff like EX Plus. Malignant, I have no idea. I saw so many art pieces of Malignant though. That's the reason why he's the last one on this list. I saw so many art pieces of Malignant that he had to have been used for something. But I didn't see any Tiki setups with this man. I'll be real. I didn't see any Tiki setups, but I saw too much art for him not to be used for something. So I don't know what he was used for, but he was used for something. I'm guessing it was like an Ogi, Filato, something. I don't think you know. But anyway, that's all the Tiki tier list for the post Guild War Ramble Earth 2026. That was a lot of stuff to get through. Honestly, even through the thick and the thin, with me not having a lot of time in the first couple of days, me getting sick, you know, random stuff, I honestly had a lot of fun with this Guild War. For the stuff that I played, I enjoyed the Ogi comps. I enjoyed the manual comps that I did. It was just fun. It was just fun. It was also, I'm very proud of making my Nightmare 90 as well. That was very beneficial for the Celestials. Yeah, just in general, you know, I had a good time for what it was. I mean, obviously I have some bias because I'm the Earth player, but I did have fun with this Guild War. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, in the future, I look to make an Earth Glaze, Earth just overview video, just talking about just my thoughts on the state of Earth and stuff like that. But that is for another time. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this post Guild War Ramble. Another one in the books. We'll see what the next element is in like a day or two, and we'll go from there. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for the support as always, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.